I hadn't seen her in almost 4 years. The last time we spoke, she told everyone I'd exaggerated, that I was ruining a good man's life. That good man was her fiancé now. When the invitation showed up, I just stared at it. White paper with gold edges, my name printed neat, like nothing had ever happened. In her handwriting, just one sentence beneath. Let's finally make peace. I wasn't planning to go, but then I saw Mom, sitting on the couch, her face wet with tears, begging me, not even asking, to just show up and be civil. I couldn't just say no after that. Part of me wanted to see if he'd even look me in the eye. Part of me wanted to prove I wasn't the one who broke this family. What I didn't expect was that the truth would come out without me saying a single word. I walked up the driveway, and right away I felt it. Like the air was tighter than usual, thick with something unspoken. Everyone was standing around the front porch, laughing quietly, but if you looked closely, their eyes skimmed past me, like I was some awkward shadow better ignored. My stomach twisted, but I forced my shoulders back and smiled. This was their day, wasn't it? I had no right to be here. Yet here I was. As I stepped inside, my mom gave me a quick, tight smile before turning away. My sister's laugh caught in her throat when our eyes met, and my dad kept his head down, clutching a glass like it was the last thing keeping him steady. Nobody said anything about the mess we'd all swept under the rug. They acted like I was just some random face crashing perfect family pictures. Then he was there, Matt, the groom. He came over with that same polite, stiff grin he's always had. No warmth, but not cold either. Just practiced, like he was reading a script. Hey, he said, voice low enough to seem casual, but I could tell he was choosing his words carefully. Glad you could make it. I nodded, swallowing the lump rising in my throat. Thanks for having me. There was this beat, just long enough to feel like it should have meant something, but all it did was widen the crack under the surface. I glanced around and caught the way the rest of the family kept looking anywhere but my face, as if acknowledging me might pull the whole thing apart. I wanted to ask him why. Why did it all have to pretend like nothing happened? But the words stuck to the roof of my mouth. I wasn't sure if I was more scared of his answer or the silence that would follow. We stood there, like statues forced into a fake snapshot of contentment. The chandelier overhead caught the glitter on the tables, and that ridiculous floral centerpiece teased me with normalcy. The whole room buzzed with quiet chatter, but every sentence felt like it carried a tiny, desperate lie. I tried to find something familiar beyond the surface. Did it hurt them too? The way they avoided me? Did they feel the tension tightening each time their smiles didn't quite touch their eyes? But my anger bubbled up. Why was their pain so much easier to ignore than mine? Like I was the one who needed to leave, not them. Matt's voice broke through, lighter now. I hope you're doing okay. I wanted to say, no, I'm not okay. But I didn't. Instead, I just nodded again, forcing out a smile that didn't reach me. Sure I was anything but that. As I looked around the room, it hit me. Everyone was smiling like nothing had ever happened. They had bottled it up so well, so neatly, that it almost looked peaceful. Almost. I knew better. Pretending was the real family tradition. The thing we'd all mastered in our own way to survive. But it made me want to scream. At one point, my uncle passed by and muttered something about how well put together everything looked. I caught his eye, and for a split second, I saw the same unease flicker there. The way he glanced away quick, like he was scared to confront it too. In that moment, my chest tightened, and I realized this wasn't just about me. This was about all of us locked in denial, holding our breaths, pretending, hoping the cracks would never show. I wanted to believe we could just move forward. I really did. But underneath it all, something told me this fragile piece was just building up for a fall. And as they carried on smiling, I felt the weight of that quiet tension crowding me, growing heavier with every silent glance. Like we were right on the edge, and someone was about to push us all over. Dinner was supposed to be the healing moment. That's what she said before standing up, glass in hand, smiling like someone who just won the whole game. Forgiveness, she said, is the only path forward. It's what sets us free. The room filled with polite applause. People leaning in, nodding, like they were hearing some gospel or a new mantra to repeat on Sunday mornings. I forced my smile so hard my cheeks hurt. I wanted to disappear. The fake warmth in her voice felt like acid sliding down my throat. I could taste the bile rising. She talked about moving on like it was some branded lifestyle choice. Like trauma was a mess you could tidy with a pep talk and a glass of wine. We all have scars, she said, but choosing to forgive breaks the chains. Her eyes gleamed with that practiced shine, like she'd rehearsed this speech in front of a mirror 100 times. It wasn't about anyone but her. I kept my hands folded on my lap. I felt so small, like I was shrinking beneath the table. Every word she said was a twist of the knife, a reminder that the story she told the room wasn't mine. It was hers. She carried herself like the hero of this narrative, a savior who reached out her hand to drag me from the wreckage. But really? She was the one who built the fire. I caught my reflection in the window behind her, smiling, but hollow, sick to my stomach. The smell of the food on the table made me queasy. I couldn't eat. I kept thinking about how she said, "Forgive," like it was a brand she could sell. But I was the product she ruined first. People started sharing their own, forgiving stories, little testimonials meant to echo and support her. Almost like a choir dutifully singing a hymn she composed. I imagined the words as a script I was trapped in, lines assigned to keep the chaos small, neat, acceptable. I wanted to shout then, "Don't let her fool you." But I swallowed every scream. My throat closed up. Halfway through, she pivoted. Her smile softened, voice dripping with a fake tenderness that made my skin crawl. "I know it's hard," she said. "And sometimes there's no right timeline for healing, but holding grudges only hurts us." She reached over and squeezed someone's hand across the table. Everyone else smiled. I was aching inside, disgusted at how she twisted this moment, shame flooding me for feeling so torn, so angry, when I was supposed to just forgive. Grief pressed on my chest like a weight I couldn't unbutton or shrug off, tight and relentless. I thought about my own silence through all this, the things I wanted to say but couldn't. Maybe I should have pushed back, said something raw instead of sitting there swallowing everything. But maybe part of me wanted to believe she meant it, wanted to find peace in her words, even if they landed like lies. When the applause settled and the chatter picked up, I looked down at my hands again. My fingers pressed against the wood of the table, trembling. The smiles around me didn't feel real. I didn't feel free. I felt trapped. She sat down beside me and whispered, "This is the start of something better." Her mouth was close to my ear, but the warmth didn't reach me. I nodded, pretended to believe it. But the nausea in my gut was growing, spreading, something inside me breaking quietly. I thought it was over, but the silence that followed said otherwise. He stumbled over to me, glassy eyes barely focused, reeking of cheap whiskey and something sour beneath it. Cousin Mark, always the loudmouth, the drunk one at family gatherings. But tonight his voice was quieter, almost dragging itself out like a confession. He still jokes about it. "You know," he slurred, leaning too close, breath smelling like burnt alcohol and regret. "Says you were asking for it." I froze, the words hitting like ice water straight down my spine. Asking for it. Like I'd done this on purpose, like anyone would ever deserve that. I looked at him, expecting maybe some kind of apology or a glance of shame in those bloodshot eyes. But there was nothing but a grim, awkward grin. "Mark," I said, my voice sharper than I meant. "What the hell are you talking about?" He shrugged, wobbled but didn't fall, and chuckled darkly. "Come on, everyone knows. The groom, he's been laughing about that night for years. Jokes about how you led him on, how you made a fool out of him." I blinked, a rush of heat scalding my cheeks that wasn't just the embarrassment of him whispering this in front of everyone. Every word confirmed it. They didn't forget what he did. They just learned how to laugh about it, like it was some twisted punchline at my expense. I tried to steady my breathing, chest tightening. There was something unbearably cruel about how the truth kept living in their dirty jokes, how it sat in the room like a low, ugly hum no one bothered to silence. I looked away, feeling a rush of vulnerability clawing up my throat, that no matter how much I wanted to erase it, it was still there, poisoning everything. "Why would you tell me this now?" I forced out, my voice shaking. "Why now, at my cousin's wedding?" Mark stared at me for a long second, like the haze of the booze had finally cleared a little. "Maybe 'cause somebody's gotta say it," he said, voice rough like he'd been holding that in for years. "Because no one else would." "Jesus," I whispered. Rage bubbled up fast. Not the wild kind that explodes, but the slow, grinding kind that digs into your bones. How many times had the groom walked around, smiling, pretending he'd done nothing wrong? How many times had the rest of them nodded along, playing along with that sick joke? I wanted to slap Mark, but I didn't. Part of me registered the weight in his eyes, like he was disgusted too, stuck in some sorry mess he couldn't escape. Instead, I pressed my hand against the nearest wall, trying to stop it all from swallowing me whole. Did you ever tell anyone else you heard this? I asked, voice low, trying not to sound as broken as I felt. Nah, he said, voice softer now, almost ashamed. Figured I'd keep my mouth shut, you know. But tonight, I wanted you to know. You're not alone in this, even if it feels that way. That tiny shred of something close to kindness felt like a cruel joke, thrown in to twist the knife even further. I swallowed hard, attempting to hold the tremble in check, the world narrowing to just the tightness in my chest and the angry pulse behind my eyes. The music kept playing, the laughter ringing hollow around us, but inside I was drowning in all that filthy history everyone pretended had passed. Mark's words echoed in my head like a damn curse, the truth never buried, just buried in jokes and cheap drinks. I wanted to walk away, to disappear from this room, from those whispers. But I couldn't. Not yet. Not when I had just been reminded how deep the scars ran, how wide the divide between what happened and what mattered to them still was. I looked back at Mark, saw how small he suddenly seemed in the buzzing chaos of the party. And still, what he said burned brighter than any drunk slur. They never forgot. They just learned how to laugh about it. I thought it was over. But the silence that followed said otherwise. I stepped outside just to get some air, the cold night hitting me like a wall after being cramped inside with all that mess. The hallway was quiet, but then I saw him, the groom, sitting on the steps, a cigarette hanging from his lips, a bottle of something cheap and half-empty by his side. He looked up as I came out, eyes glassy but sharp in that same mocking way he always had. Taking a little break from the chaos, he said, flicking ash on the ground like he didn't care if it stained everything around him. His voice was lazy but still had that edge, like poison covered in honey. I didn't say anything, just stood there, trying to keep calm, but my chest was tight, like I couldn't catch my breath. The night felt colder suddenly, or maybe it was just me. He laughed, low and rough. You know, you should be grateful I didn't press charges back then. I froze. My stomach dropped. It was like someone punched me. The words hung in the air, twisting everything inside me. I wanted to shout, to scream, to tell him to just fuck off, but my mouth wouldn't move. I could feel the rage building, pure, burning anger, but underneath it was that old, deep-ground fear, the one I thought I'd left behind but clearly hadn't. He took a long drag and exhaled slow, looking me dead in the eyes. You think you're the only one who walked away? I could have ruined you, you know, but I didn't. Maybe you should thank me for that. Or maybe you just want to pretend like none of it ever happened. His words were sharp, stabbing at something raw inside me. I hated how calm he was, how he twisted it all like it was some joke I wasn't invited to laugh at. For a moment, I wished I could disappear, that I could erase every second that connected me to him. I forced myself to swallow the lump in my throat. Why are you even here? I managed, voice tighter than I wanted. What do you want from me now? He smirked, then leaned in closer. I caught that same stench I hated, cigarette smoke mixed with cheap liquor, the smell that always made my skin crawl. I'm just here to remind you, he said, voice low, almost taunting, that no matter how far you run, I'm still in the picture. The way he said it sent ice through me, like the past was crawling out of the shadows and wrapping itself around my neck. I wanted to turn and run, but I stayed rooted, angry that he still had this hold on me. Maybe I should call the cops, I said suddenly, the words slipping out before I could stop them. A part of me wanted to throw everything at him. The fear, the pain, the helplessness. But all that came out was this small, desperate threat. His laugh this time wasn't gentle. It was dark and bitter. Go ahead, he said. Watch everyone turn their back on you. You think I'm the monster here? You have no idea what people really think. His face got closer still, and I could see the ugly grin stretched across it. But beneath it, something raw and empty. For a split second, I wanted to reach out, to try and pull him back from whatever had made him like this, but I couldn't. I shut that thought down fast. I took a shaky breath, backing away slowly. I don't owe you anything, I said, voice steady despite the shaking in my hands. The anger was still there, hot and fierce, but now mixed with this quiet, unbearable exhaustion. I'd faced him, said what I needed to say, or at least tried. He watched me go, and when I didn't rise to whatever bait he was throwing, he just let the cigarette drop and crushed it under his boot. The silence that followed was heavy, more suffocating than his words ever were. I thought if I just kept moving, I could leave it all behind. But standing there, in the cold night air, I knew that part of me was still stuck in that moment, frozen, trapped between what happened and what could never be erased. I wanted to scream, to yell so loud someone would hear me through the walls, but the only sound was my own breath, shaky and sharp, fading into the dark. I was just trying to slip away. My heels barely made any sound on the floor as I headed toward the coat room, hoping to duck outside without anyone noticing. The whole night felt off, like this pressure was building, and my heart pounded like hell in my chest. I told myself, just get out, get some fresh air, don't look back. But then, from down the hall near the side rooms, a shrill scream cracked through the air. Too sharp, too desperate to be anything but real. People froze for a second, then chaos exploded. Guests turned their heads, whispers turned into shouts, and the murmur grew louder and louder. Someone called out, "What's going on? Somebody help." The music stopped abruptly, like someone hit the mute button on the entire world. I felt my breath hitch and instincts dragged me toward the noise, even though every part of me wanted to run the other way. When I reached the doorway, I saw him, all of it coming out in a flash. The groom, that smiling monster everyone wanted to believe was perfect, standing over a bridesmaid who was trembling, fending him off with shaking hands. Her face was blotchy, eyes wide with shock, and something far worse. His fist was clenched like he'd just realized this was his moment to lose control. It wasn't some small fight. It was raw anger, desperation, ugly. I'm sorry, he stammered, voice cracking. I didn't mean to. She shouted at him to stop, crying, "No, stop, please." But no one could hear over the stampede of people now flooding into the hall. Phones came out in an instant, flashes firing, capturing everything. Everyone's faces turned from confusion to horror, and then, slowly, the pieces fell into place right before their eyes. I stood there, frozen. Years of silence, whispers in corners, the looks I got when I tried to explain, it all smashed down inside me at once. No one believed me for years, and now they all saw what I'd tried to forget. It wasn't paranoia or bitterness. It was real. A few people rushed forward, grabbing the groom's arms, holding him back. His wide eyes darted around, full of panic now. It was a joke. It was a joke, he shouted, voice breaking. But no one was buying it anymore. The bridesmaid, still trembling, looked at me for a second. Her eyes were broken, but so was something else, like she was relieved someone had finally been right. I wanted to scream at him, call out everything he did to me, but the words clotted in my throat. Instead, I just watched as the scene spun out of control, the guests shouting, some on their phones yelling at whoever was on the other end. The bride collapsed into tears nearby, disbelief and rage mixed in her sobs. The music was gone, replaced by the wild, sharp noise of chaos. I felt this strange mix inside me, this surge of vindication that all those years of doubt were suddenly shattered, but underneath it, the raw horror of how deep the damage went. And then this quiet pity for everyone, especially for that bridesmaid, whose trust was broken in seconds, and despite everything, still had the courage to show up and stand up here. The moment felt endless. People kept talking, screaming, but inside I was numb. Like even though the truth was out, nothing could fix what happened. The room was spinning with shattered trust, broken promises, and the messy wreckage of a night meant for joy. I thought maybe, finally, the nightmare was over. But then I realized, the storm was just waking up, and no one really knew where it would go from here. The sirens were the first thing I heard, sharp and slicing through the thick, stifling air in the apartment. Then the knock came, loud, insistent. It wasn't real, not yet. I kept telling myself that, even as my heart thudded loud enough to be the sound in the hallway. When the door opened, 2 officers stepped in, their faces set but soft, like they already knew this was going to be a mess. My sister was crumpled on the floor near the couch, tears pouring down her cheeks in a way that made her look like she was trying to pour all the noise in her head out through her skin. She was shouting, in that broken, ragged way people do when they're barely holding on. "You don't understand," she kept saying, over and over. He didn't mean it. You have to believe me. I could see now, really see, the same wild panic I'd seen in myself so many years ago when things fell apart. Her hands shook so hard it was like she was trying to grasp air. Her lip trembled as she begged the officers to keep him safe, to not take him away just yet. She wasn't the enemy. She was terrified. But God, that terrified plea. It was a mirror of everything I used to feel before the truth dug its claws in too deep. One of the officers knelt down beside her, voice calm but firm. "Miss, we need to know exactly what happened." When she tried to speak again, it came out as choking sobs. I wanted to reach over and pull her close, but I knew if I did, I'd break. Sometimes, guilt has this way of curling tight like a fist around your heart, squeezing you dry. At first, she fought for him like he was some fragile thing that'd shatter if anyone looked too hard. But then, little cracks started to form in the armor she'd built around herself. Something in her eyes shifted. There was confusion, like a flicker of doubt creeping in. The kind of doubt I remember well, the kind I wished I'd seen sooner. I didn't think he'd. I swear, he wasn't going to hurt anyone. She whispered, voice barely there. Her breath hitched, and she looked at me. Really looked, like I was the only person who could save her now. The weight in her eyes was so heavy I wanted to disappear. I wanted to tell her it was going to be okay, but even as I thought it, I knew it wasn't true. I'd already drowned once for her, caught in a wave that nearly swept me under. And now here we were again, twisting through the same storm. The officer's voice cut through the thick silence. "Miss, we're here to help. You're safe." But safe didn't feel right. Nothing felt right. Not after watching her try to protect him like that, the way I tried once. The way people who love sometimes sink too deep to pull up on their own. I stepped closer, voice soft but steady, my own hands shaking despite me. "You need to see what I saw? It's not protection. It's denial." Saying it out loud felt like airing out poison. I watched her flinch. She shook her head, tears blurring her vision, but maybe she was already starting to see. Her sobs slowed, the panic dimmed into something like resignation. It hit me then, how guilt was eating through her, just like it had me. That quiet, awful guilt that's tangled with shock and hope and shame all at once. And beneath that, a kind of compassion, strange and bitter, that even when people hurt those they love, sometimes it's because they're broken in ways no one sees. The room felt too small, the weight of everything pressing down. She looked up again, uncertain, eyes full of questions she wasn't ready to ask. I thought it was over, but the silence that followed said otherwise. We sat in the cramped waiting area of the police station, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead like they were trying to drown out everything that had just happened. My sister wouldn't stop looking at me like I was the only one who could fix this. She had this desperate hope behind her eyes, like she knew I owed her somehow, like I was still the person who could make things right by just staying. "Please," she said quietly, a hand resting on my arm. "Stay. Help me get through this." The softness in her voice caught me off guard, but I didn't pull away. I kept looking at the cold gray floor, the way the cracks and stains faded into the shadows. My heart was pounding, but I kept my voice low and steady when I finally answered. "I can't." There was no anger in my tone, no flicker of frustration or fight. I just said it, quiet, simple, final. "I can't be here." She blinked, like maybe she thought I'd never say it out loud. Like if I did, I'd be someone different. "I'm sorry," she whispered, pulling her hand back like she'd burned herself on a flame. Silence stretched between us, heavy and tight. I didn't want to explain. I didn't want to remind her of all the times I held myself together for everyone else until I broke. This wasn't on me anymore. I knew that, deep down, but it still felt strange to say it out loud. My chest tightened, the tight knot of sadness refusing to loosen. Not because I didn't want to help. I did, in my own way. But I'd been running on empty for far too long. I was done sacrificing myself for something I couldn't fix, or maybe I just wasn't strong enough anymore. It was relief, too, the kind that sinks in after you finally admit you need a break from the chaos. She looked away, swallowing hard like she was holding something back, maybe judgment, maybe understanding. I didn't reach out. I didn't try to pull her back. I owed her honesty, and that felt more important than comfort. When I stood up, it felt like stepping into a quiet resistance. Some part of me was taking back control, slow but steady, as the world around me stayed wild and broken. I didn't have to be the person who fixed it all. As I turned toward the door, I caught her eyes one last time. They were filled with pain, sure, but maybe also a little bit of respect. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. She finally heard me. Walking away wasn't easy. My legs felt like they weighed 100 pounds, dragging each step out of the station like I was leaving a part of myself behind. But with every step, the heaviness inside me shifted, less like a cage, more like breathing room. Outside, the night air hit my face cold and sharp. I breathed in slowly, the city noises humming around me, and for a moment, it didn't feel like I was drowning. But the silence that followed said otherwise. It was late one night when my phone lit up with a message from my sister. I didn't expect it, hadn't heard from her in weeks, not since everything blew up. The screen showed her name, and my heart kind of sank before I even opened it. She wrote, "You were right. I just didn't want to lose him." I stared at those words. Nothing else. No apology, no explanation, just that. I probably should have felt some kind of relief, validation that I wasn't crazy, that my gut wasn't lying to me all along. But instead, it felt hollow, like a door shutting too quietly. The bitterness hit me first. She had known, and still she stayed. That alone fueled this quiet anger. Anger at her, but maybe even more at myself for pretending we were on the same side. I typed back slowly, not knowing if I wanted to be harsh or gentle. "Yeah," I wrote. I figured. That was it. Short. Felt like enough. She replied almost immediately, but the tone felt guarded. I wasn't thinking straight. I just didn't want to be alone. Reading that, I couldn't help but want to reach across the miles and tell her that wanting something doesn't make it right. But I didn't, because underneath that bitterness, there was something softer, empathy. I got it. Nobody wants to let go of someone they love, even if that someone isn't good for them. I'd been there. The same mistake, over and over again. I sat with the phone in my hand, the silence between messages like a thick weight. I thought about the times she'd called, the excuses, the lies I tried to ignore. Trying to protect her didn't feel like winning anymore. It felt like standing watch over a sinking ship, helpless. When I finally answered again, my fingers hesitated, shaking a little. I get it, but it still hurt. "You stayed even though you knew." Her next message was read almost instantly, then blank for a long time before she said, "I'm sorry. I really am." That caught me off guard. There it was, something real, quiet, no drama, just plain apology. I wanted to forgive her, maybe more for myself than for her. But I also felt the distance grow. The connection wasn't broken beyond repair, but the cracks were deep, and whatever glue we had wasn't strong anymore. "I don't know if we can go back, but I'm glad you told me," I wrote, then left my phone down. My chest was tight, but there was a strange kind of peace in finally naming the truth out loud. Later, I replayed the exchange in my head over and over. It didn't feel like victory, just the end of something that should have ended years ago. Maybe a first step to something different, something quieter, something less painful. I kept the messages tucked away, a reminder that love and regret can live side by side. And sometimes the hardest distance to cross is the one within your own family. I sat in the waiting room, the sterile scent of the clinic filling the air, and I could barely focus on the muted sound of the TV blaring some morning show. My hands were clenched in my lap, fingers twisting like they were trying to trap something inside me. The receptionist had called my name 5 minutes ago, but I didn't move at first. I just stared at the beige wall, thinking about how I'd ended up here again, staring down a version of myself I didn't want to meet. When I finally walked into the therapist's office, it was quieter than I imagined. No judgment in the room, just soft lighting and space. Space to be angry, hurt, confused. Space I hadn't allowed myself when all I could think about was revenge. "You ready to start?" she asked. Not in a pushy way, but like she knew I was holding on too tight to something that needed to loosen. I nodded, even though my voice felt caught somewhere between my throat and my ribs. I've been thinking a lot about my sister. About what she did. It's like she broke something inside me by siding with him, defending him. I swallowed hard. But now, I'm finally seeing that maybe she can't fix this. Maybe that's on me. The words felt strange out loud. Like admitting this was both a relief and a kind of defeat. I wasn't going to get the apology I craved, not from her. I realized I'd been stuck, carrying that betrayal like a weapon. And by holding on to it, I was carrying my own weight, bruised and bleeding. The therapist nodded, giving me that quiet, steady look like she was telling me it was okay to be fragile. "What do you feel when you think about fixing this yourself?" I blinked, searching for an answer. Honestly, part of me just wanted to bury it all again. Push the pain deeper so I didn't have to face it daily. But something else had shifted. Fatigue, I said softly. I'm just so tired. Tired of being angry. Tired of pretending I hate her, or myself, or the whole damn situation. But I don't know what comes next. That was the honest truth. For months, my mind replayed everything like a loop of blame and revenge. But it wasn't helping. It was just exhausting. And maybe accepting that was the first step toward whatever healing looked like for me. She smiled, but gently. Sometimes acceptance isn't about liking what happened. It's about letting the part of you that's stuck finally let go. You're not forgiving her. You're not forgetting. You're just choosing not to let it destroy you. I thought about that for a long moment, feeling my heartbeat slow a little. I'd been hoping to hear something like that, but it still felt fragile, like walking on ice. Scary, but somehow necessary. I want to stop being defined by what she did, I said quietly. I want to find me again, without all this weight. That's a good goal. Her voice was calm, steady. And healing is messy. It's not a straight line, and it might take time. But you didn't lose yourself. You just forgot where to find you. That hit hard, because I really believed I'd lost myself somewhere between the lies and betrayal. And maybe it was true. I had lost track, but maybe not forever. Maybe finding a way back was possible. We sat there for a while in silence, not rushing to fill the space with words. I noticed how my fingers weren't as clenched anymore, how my breathing was slower. The knot in my chest loosened just a little. She handed me a notebook on the way out. Write what you're feeling. No filters. Just honest. Walking back to my car, the sky had started to clear, even though it was cold and gray. I let myself take a deep breath, the kind that catches in your chest when you're scared but willing to try. She broke me by defending him, but she can't rebuild me. That's mine to do. I didn't feel whole yet. Not by a long shot. But maybe I didn't have to feel broken forever. Maybe that was the kind of hope I could carry for now, no matter how small or fragile it was. And that felt like the first honest promise I'd made to myself in weeks. I thought walking out would feel like relief. Instead, it felt like the start of a long road I wasn't sure I was ready for. But I knew I couldn't keep walking it the same way. Something had to change inside me. And in that moment, I decided I was ready to try. It was just a normal evening when my phone buzzed. I'd almost forgotten how quiet things had gotten. The kind of quiet that doesn't push or pull, just sits. I wasn't expecting anything from my sister, not after everything. But there it was, a message with a photo attached. I stared at it, hesitant, thumb hovering. The photo was from her wedding day. There we were, both smiling, caught in this perfect moment that didn't feel like mine anymore. Her eyes shining at the camera, mine glued to her, like I was holding on to something I barely remembered. The edges of the picture were familiar, but everything inside it felt like a scene from someone else's life. I didn't say anything. I just sat there in the soft glow of my phone screen. After all the fights, silences, and cold shoulders, this image was like a ghost inviting me back to a place I wasn't sure I wanted to revisit. I could almost hear the voices behind the lens, the laughter, the toasts, but none of it fit with how things had ended. I didn't want to reach out. I didn't want to type some awkward response or fake congratulations. Because this photo wasn't about celebration anymore. It was a last trace of something we used to share before it all unraveled. It was proof she never got rid of it, maybe couldn't bear to forget. And for a split second, a strange wave of sadness hit me harder than I expected. But I wasn't the same person I was back then. I'd spent months, maybe years, learning how to hold myself together without the pieces she'd chipped away from me. And I realized I didn't want that old version back. I didn't want the cracks and the hurt to stretch open again. So I did the only thing that felt right. I slid the photo into the trash and tapped delete. I didn't feel dramatic about it. No anger or bitterness, just a calm acceptance. Like, this chapter was finally closing, even if the scars from it would always be there. It was quiet, but it was enough. Sometimes, closure isn't about shouting or breaking down. It's about the small decisions you make when no one's watching. The little acts that say, I'm choosing to move forward on my terms. Deleting that photo was one of those acts. There wasn't a rush of relief afterward. There was just a steady pulse of peace. Like carrying a weight you didn't realize you'd been holding, and then setting it down. And in that peace, beneath the sadness that still lingered, I found a sort of strength I hadn't expected. Not the loud, proud kind, but the quiet, stubborn courage to let go without needing anything in return. I didn't need revenge anymore. Just silence, and the peace of knowing she finally saw the truth. I locked my phone and leaned back in my chair, staring out the window. The night air was cool through the crack, steady and unchanging. The past wasn't coming back, and maybe that was okay. Maybe this was what healing looked like. Not forgetting, not forgiving, just living. But as I sat there absorbing the calm, a small part of me lingered on that smile in the photo. How something so simple, so joyful, could feel so distant now, like a door I'd closed without ever really slamming it shut. I thought it was over. But the quiet still held a question I wasn't sure I could answer yet.